Right, so you've brought us some really meaty stuff to look at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Excerpts focusing on a specific chunk of Matthew's Gospel, chapter 10, verses 16 to 31.
That's the one.
And it really paints this picture, doesn't it? Being sent out, having a purpose, but also, well, walking into something potentially quite difficult.
Yeah, exactly. The source material really keys in on this idea of a mandate, like a specific calling from these verses, and it links this specific sending out to a much wider ongoing mission.
Okay. So for this deep dive, our goal is basically to unpack what that means, according to this text anyway, to be sent out. We want to get a feel for, the tough parts, the challenges, but also the encouragements that the source brings out.
Right, and keep it pretty grounded, yeah. Avoid getting tangled up in, super heavy theological jargon.
Definitely. Keep it accessible.
So interestingly, the source starts by sort of laying a foundation. It connects this specific moment in Matthew 10 back to the Great Commission.
Ah, okay. Matthew 28, the end of the book.
Right, verses 18 to 20. That big instruction to make disciples of all nations.
Okay, so help us connect those dots a bit.
Yeah.
The text you shared really pushes that this instruction, it wasn't just a one-off thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
It links it to Jesus' promise about being with his followers to the end of the age.
Exactly. And the source argues pretty strongly that because of that promise, the mandate is, well, it's still alive. It's for today.
Right, didn't expire.
No. And to get into the details here, the source makes this, I think, quite helpful distinction. It separates what it calls local evangelism, reaching people maybe already familiar with the basic ideas, from frontier missions.
Frontier missions, like going where the message is completely unknown.
Precisely. Unreached people groups, totally new territory.
Mm-hmm.
And the source suggests Matthew 10 is really speaking into that kind of context, the more challenging frontier situation.
And that immediately brings up that question the source asks directly, doesn't it? Who will go? And okay, the text is obviously religious, but that question, it kind of echoes more widely, right? That feeling of needing to share something important or tackle something hard where you might get pushback.
Totally. It resonates beyond the specific context, and that leads straight into this really powerful image in verse 16.
The sheep among wolves.
Yeah, sheep in the midst of wolves. It's such a striking picture. It's about vulnerability, isn't it? Not about going in with power or force.
It really flips expectations.
Yeah.
And then right alongside that, you get this instruction that seems almost contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
Wise as serpents and innocent as doves.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act, isn't it?
How do you even do that? Navigate tricky situations with smarts, but also with real, integrity. What does that look like?
It's a tough one. And the source then kind of unpacks the wolves part, you could say. It details these 6 costs associated with being sent out, pulling them straight from Matthew 10.
Okay, let's walk through these. So the first potential cost mentioned is arrest by authorities, verses 17 and 18. And this isn't just theoretical. It talks about being dragged into court, facing governors, kings.
Yeah, it highlights the real possibility of facing official opposition, legal trouble, just for acting on your beliefs or this calling. You can think of historical examples even today.
Absolutely. So real consequences. Then the second cost. This one feels deeply personal. Family betrayal, verse 21.
Yeah. The source points out how these deeply held beliefs, this message, could cause major splits, even within the closest family unit.
That's wow. The emotional weight of that. Thinking your own family might turn against you.
It's stark. Then number 3 is being hated by all, from verse 22.
Okay, by all sounds pretty extreme.
It does. And the source is careful here. It clarifies it probably doesn't mean, literally every single person will hate you.
Right.
But it points to the risk of facing widespread disapproval, general animosity from society, maybe, not necessarily zero positive connections, but significant opposition.
Okay, that distinction helps. It's about the general climate you might face.
Exactly. The fourth cost is persecution and being driven out. Verse 23 talks about fleeing from one town to another.
So actual pressure forcing you to move, to uproot your life.
Yeah. The reality of facing hostility that makes it impossible to stay put, it underlines the potential need for resilience and adaptability.
Definitely takes courage.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5 is being maligned.
Verse 25.
And the example given is Jesus himself being called Beelzebul, which is a really nasty accusation.
Yeah.
Prince of demons.
Right. The source's point is, look, if the leader face that kind of slander and reputational attack, then those who follow that path should probably expect something similar.
So dealing with lies, false labels, people trying to trash your name.
Yeah, the pain of being misunderstood or deliberately misrepresented.
And then the last one, number 6. It's the most serious. Being killed, verse 28.
Yes, and here the source draws attention to the distinction Jesus makes in that verse.
Between those who can kill the body but not the soul.
Exactly. It acknowledges the ultimate physical risk some might face while pointing towards something enduring beyond that.
Okay, wow. That is quite a list of potential downsides. Arrest, betrayal, hatred, persecution, slander, death. It's intense.
It really is. It doesn't shy away from the potential hardship.
But thankfully, the passage doesn't stop there. And neither does the source material you shared.
No, thankfully not. It pivots.
It moves on to outline 10 blessings, sort of counterweights to those costs.
Exactly. Counterbalancing forces, you could say.
Makes you wonder how these could possibly, sustain someone facing all that potential difficulty.
Well, let's look at them. This is where the perspective really shifts. The first blessing is simply being sent by Christ. Back to verse 16.
Just the act of being sent is a blessing.
The source argues yes. There's this deep sense of purpose, of validation, that comes from feeling you're commissioned for something meaningful.
Okay, I can see that. The satisfaction of having a clear mission, feeling directed.
Right. Then the second blessing. Being given words by the Spirit of God. That's verses 19 and 20.
So when you're facing those authorities, you don't have to worry about what to say.
Kind of. It speaks to that feeling, maybe, of finding the right words, the right insights, right when you need them most, even if you felt unprepared.
Like a kind of divine assistance in the moment.
That's the idea. Trusting something beyond your own ability to guide you.
Okay. Blessing number 3.
Experiencing God's fatherly care, also drawing from verse 20, which mentions the spirit of your father.
So even if those earthly relationships, like family, are strained or broken,
There's this reassurance of a constant, loving, underlying support, a different kind of family connection almost.
that could be incredibly grounding, especially given the cost of potential family betrayal we talked about.
Number 4 is the blessing of salvation, connected to verse 22, which mentions enduring to the end.
So this is looking long-term, the ultimate reward for sticking it out.
Yeah, it frames perseverance through the hardships as having this profound ultimate significance, a bigger picture reward.
Got it. What's blessing number 5?
Knowing the Son of Man is coming in judgment and mercy. That's from verse 23.
Okay, how does the source interpret that? It sounds like end time stuff.
Well, the source suggests it's an encouragement that justice and fairness will ultimately win out. It even proposes that coming might refer to multiple instances of judgment or intervention, not just the final return, a sense of ongoing accountability.
Interesting. So a belief that things will eventually be set right.
Yes, a sense of hope and ultimate justice. The sixth blessing is belonging to Jesus' household, which ties back to verse 25 again.
The Beelzebul verse. How does that become a blessing?
Because the verse says, if they've called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household?
So it's about identity. Even in rejection, you know who you belong to.
Exactly. A sense of shared identity, shared values, shared purpose with this household, even if the wider world pushes back. There's strength in that belonging.
Like finding your people, even if it means opposition from others. Okay, number 7.
Knowing that the truth will triumph. This draws from verse 26, which talks about things hidden being revealed.
So a confidence that eventually what's true will come out.
Yeah, an underlying belief that truth has its own power and will ultimately be recognized, even if it's suppressed for a while.
That could definitely fuel perseverance, believing you're on the side of truth. Okay, 8th blessing.
Having an immortal soul. Back to verse 28 again.
The part about not fearing those who kill the body.
Right. It offers this perspective that stretches beyond just physical life, beyond temporary suffering.
A sense of an enduring self or existence?
Precisely. Number 9 is having a father who sovereignly rules the details of your life.
Okay, where does that come from?
Verse 29, the part about the sparrows. Not one falls to the ground apart from the Father's will.
The sparrow example. So it's about feeling that even tiny details are noticed, are part of a larger caring plan.
Exactly. That sense of intricate care and oversight, it's meant to be comforting.
I can see how that image would be powerful.
Yeah.
That you're not just overlooked.
And that leads directly into the 10th and final blessing, being valued by God.
Verse 31.
Yes. You are more valuable than many sparrows.
So it's an affirmation of inherent worth.
A fundamental statement of your significance, your value in this divine perspective.
Wow. Okay, so you have these really stark costs, but then these quite profound blessings running alongside them.
That's the picture the source paints. And it suggests that this feeling of being called to this frontier mission, or maybe even other significant tasks, it doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It arises from understanding the mission, realistically counting the potential costs, and deeply recognizing these blessings that offer strength.
And it strikes me as you lay it out that even if someone isn't coming from this specific religious framework, these underlying principles, feeling a call, weighing the risks, finding sources of strength and meaning, that dynamic feels kind of universal, doesn't it?
I think the source implies that, yes, it could apply to any area where you feel a strong pull to do something important, something creative, something challenging, even knowing it might be difficult.
Yeah, taking on a big project, starting a difficult conversation, advocating for change.
Exactly. It prompts you to think about those moments in your own life.
Yeah.
That sense of purpose, even when it feels daunting.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it seems the core tension is right there. The real challenges, the wolves you might face when you step out for something meaningful.
Versus the equally real, maybe even deeper sources of encouragement, value, and support that the text suggests are available.
Yeah, it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
Oh.
It makes me wonder, and maybe our listeners too, what's your frontier right now? Is there a new idea you're holding back on? A tough conversation waiting? Some big project that feels overwhelming?
And how might these ideas about potential costs, but also about deeper blessings or motivations, how might they map onto your situation?
Right. What are the fears you might need to look at?
Right.
And maybe more importantly, what's the real underlying why that's driving you forward despite them? Something to chew on.